Happy VA Wednesday. So today we're going to be talking about what a VA manual underwrite is. Now, the first thing I want to point out is that not all lenders do them. Okay, so there's a very good chance you could get turned down for a VA loan when you're actually eligible just because that lender doesn't do a manual underwrite. So let's talk about, first of all, what happens and how you can end up being a VA manual underwrite. So let me give you an example. So you fill out the application with us, we pull your certificate of eligibility, we verify your income and your assets, we then run your file through desktop underwriting. Desktop underwriting is usually known as DU, desktop underwriting, or LP, okay? And what those systems do is they're analyzing all of the information that we input as well as your credit history, and it's coming up with either an approve eligible or refer, or an eligible and an ineligible, okay? Now, if you're getting an approve, cool, party on. You know, with us, you go to the processor and then you go to the underwriter, they just verify everything. That's all they're doing. The computer already loves you. They're just making sure that everything that was stated on that application is correct. That's it. They're looking for problems, of course, but that's it. Now, if the computer comes back and it's like, no, refer, at that point, that is when my team would be saying, okay, could we do a manual underwrite on them? Okay, so a manual underwrite is the computer has gauged your file as too risky. Okay, so that means the underwriter is going to be making the full determination on your file. And because there's no computer saying gold star, right, the underwriter has additional requirements. I'm not kidding. And as I say this, it's kind of silly. It's like, you know, tech has a lot of great things, but some of the reasons we'll see stuff turned into manual, it's just ridiculous. So yes, it will have additional rules. So for us to do a VA manual underwrite, we have to have 24 months of on-time housing payment history and no lates on your credit report within the last year, sometimes up to 2 years. That's going to be up to underwriter discretion. If you have a bunch of lates this year, nope, not going to work. If you haven't paid your rent on time in the last 2 years, you're out. You know, same with mortgages, you're out from the VA manual underwrite. There's very few exceptions to that. You know, we had one recently where the gentleman's property management company changed. They didn't give him time to set up auto pay. It was a disaster. We could prove it, so that was okay. But if you forgot to pay your rent, or oh God, you know, I just didn't have the money, we can't do the manual underwrite. You're going to have to wait to get accepted by the computer, or you're going to have to wait until you have that 2-year housing history of payment on time. Okay, so those are usually the first 2 questions I ask. You know, if we have the file, I look at the credit history. If we see any lates within the first year, we know the manual is not going to work. And at that point we say, hey, you're going to have to reapply. Here's what we think you need to work on. Okay, now, why would you end up as a VA manual underwrite? Okay, guys, there's some really stupid reasons. Like one of them, I've actually had clients with like good credit scores, like 680 credit score, the debt to income's low, they've got money in the bank, computer hates the file. And I'm like, my team's always like, why computer? You know, we'll try different things, like it will be me, Sam, Jen, Maria, Chadwick, we'll all be trying to figure it out, CJ. Most of the time, it's because someone opened up a bunch of new credit cards or they bought a couple cars within the last 6 months. That will trip up the computer every time. And the reason is because you have to keep in mind, the computer's using an algorithm to look at your risk. And when it has all these new trade lines, it doesn't know what to think, right? Because they're new. So it doesn't know what your history's on it. It doesn't know if you're taking out all these credit cards because you have debt problems. It doesn't know. So that's why it will often go, and then that triggers you to a manual, okay? So if you're ever thinking of buying a house, don't open a bunch of credit cards. Like a lot of times people think they're doing good. They're like, well, you know, I wanna build my credit and I know if I have more trade lines, I can build my credit. No, do not open more credit cards. Like call us first. Let us look at your loan before you open up credit cards. If you qualify, like a lot of times people qualify with 1 credit card. Seriously, or like 1 student loan. You don't have to have 80 different types of credit to qualify. You know, there's like this weird myth that just stays in American culture where it's like, if you want a house, you got to get a car loan first. I think the car manufacturers came up with that one. I'm not kidding. You can get a home loan without having a car loan, okay? So really try not to open up any new lines of credit. I would argue within a year of buying a house, at least 6 months. You know, if I'm thinking of buying a house, I have my credit frozen. I do not open up new credit cards. It's incredibly rare that I will open up a new one. There are very few benefits to it, guys. You know, and sometimes people are like, oh, I can transfer and do 0%. Okay, do you know why the banks do the 0% financing where they go, oh, if you switch your balance to us, it will be at 0? It's because they know most people won't pay it off by then. And then they can charge you the 2 or 3% transaction fee to switch it to 0%. And then they're going to charge you, 18, 20% on that whole amount when you don't pay it off within the time period, since so few people do, right? They have the statistics, they have the analytics. There's a reason they offer it. It's not because they're charitable. It's true. So really don't open up new cards. That is a big reason I see stuff go manual, and it just creates more work for you. Are we fine with it? Yeah, we're fine with it. We're lenders. All we do, we eat paperwork for breakfast. It's what we do. Like, we love it. Bring it to us. But yeah, you may not enjoy it as much. Okay. What else? Bankruptcies. Yeah, Chapter 11, Chapter 13, it's almost always going to be a manual bankruptcy, even if you're past the discharge dates and the timelines. Chapter 7, if you're trying to apply for a loan before that 2-year window's up, it's going to be a manual. And for us, we are going to require for that 2-year window to be up before we'll close on your loan. So, I would usually say if you're not in a rush and you had a Chapter 7, wait till after that 2 years so we have a better chance of the computer accepting. But if you're in a unique situation like new construction, we can sometimes, do a manual and then work around that. Let's see here. When would I not do manual? We covered that. I mean, guys, if you're late on your bills right now, if you haven't paid your rent or your mortgage payment, it's not going to work. But if you guys were declined by a lender and you've made your payments on housing on time for the last 2 years, your credit is you've made your payments on time for the last year or 2 years, call us. Like, there's a lot of lenders that don't know how to do a manual, or they don't even offer it. The reason why companies wouldn't offer it is because it's more labor intensive, but we're happy to do it. And the cool thing is that we actually will do it before you're in contract. So that's another thing. There are lenders that will offer a manual, but they're like, oh, we'll do it once you're in contract, go shopping. No. We fully underwrite every pre-approval, including manual underwrites, and I am so happy about that. At first we didn't, but then last year we did get the ability to do that, and it's because manual underwrites are the ones that are most likely to go sideways. So if something's going to go sideways, I want it to happen before you have money on the line. Once upon a time, this really happened. I had a buyer where he paid his landlord in cash, and we had to verify that he had paid his rent on time. So we send the landlord the form to fill out. The landlord said he was late. The buyer said he absolutely was not late. Well, come to find out, the landlord and the buyer hated each other. And the landlord literally said to him, you're going to stay here forever because I am never going to say that you paid on time. Yeah. There's some sick people in the world. So, in cases like that is the exception. I don't see that a lot, but if something like that's going to happen, I want it to happen before you have money on the line, before your husband and wife are packing boxes, before the kids are picking out rooms. We want to have everything approved and looked at. And also, guys, seriously, sometimes an underwriter will look at everything, and I'll look at the conditions that they have, and I'll talk to the buyer and say, hey, look, they said everything looks good, but what about this? And the buyer will say, I can't do that because of this. And I'm like, okay, we're toast. I want to do that before you have money on the line. Okay? And you should want your lender to do that before you have money on the line. And if the lender won't do that before you have money on the line, how is that lender working for you? I do not understand. And we don't charge to do that. So look, I'm going on a lot. Manual underwrites are great. They're a great way to get in a house. Make sure your lender can do them. Just work with us. It's easier. I'm licensed everywhere except for Rhode Island and Utah. Rhode Island because I've been lazy, and Utah because their requirements are ridiculous. So as always, questions, comments, please feel free to reach out. There's a link to my calendar, and you guys can always call me on my cell phone, which is 707-478-0637. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next VA Wednesday.